Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give you the goods on how each sign of the zodiac behaves when they're in an argument. I'm also going to give you the info on how to get resolution and make sure the argument doesn't escalate to the point of major disconnect or even a breakup. If you've already gotten to the point with one of these signs where there's a major disconnect, I have a video called How to Apologize that you may want to check out if you need some suggestions on how to reconnect. Okay, time to get to it. Here are the ways each sign of the zodiac behaves in an argument. Let's go. First up, as always, we have Aries. When you're in an argument with an Aries, you can be sure of one thing. You will always get from them exactly how they feel. When they're pushed to the point where they're truly angry, you will get an explosion. They are a fire sign. And in the midst of that explosion, they will express their point clearly and directly. And once they're through making their point, more times than not, they'll be ready actually to move on to the next moment. But if you want to make sure that the argument doesn't escalate any further, it's important to not directly contradict what it is that they said. Aries is pretty much a black or white thinker. It either is or it isn't. So if they've given you their opinion on something and you tell them that they're wrong, you are signing up for a much longer argument. So if you want to make sure not to escalate the situation, but you still have something to say that may be contrary to what they're saying, just let them know that you have heard what they have to say and that you'll be sure to take that into consideration in the future. They're pretty good about letting things go as long as you don't go directly challenging their point. It doesn't mean that you need to agree with them. They don't mind disagreements, but it does mean that you need to be willing to hear them out and move on while making sure to take what they said into consideration when it comes to your actions in the future. When they see that you're demonstrating behavior in the future that shows that you heard them loud and clear, then they'll feel even more connected to you, they'll feel like they can trust you, they'll respect you even more, and they will be sure to express that appreciation. So you can absolutely get your point across after you've made sure to hear what they have to say, let them know that you've heard them, let them know that you're going to take that into consideration in the future, and then express to them what you feel or what you think about the situation, but never ever directly just say you're wrong, because that's just going to pour some gasoline on an already ignited flame. Okay, Taurus. We all know that Taurus is known to be stubborn, and in an argument, they will be sure to hold on to whatever point it is that they're making. Much like Aries, they are black and white thinkers too, and they will for sure make it clear exactly how they feel. The difference is, once an Aries explodes and says how they feel, they can pretty much let it go as long as you don't blatantly disagree with them. A Taurus actually needs to hear you say the words in some form or another that they're right. Otherwise, the silent treatment and the stubbornness kicks in. So the truth of the matter is, if your Taurus is angry enough to be in an argument with you, in order to make sure it doesn't escalate, you either have to present some seriously solid fact-based evidence that they're wrong, and I do mean fact-based. It can't just be your opinion. A Taurus will need dates, times, examples, etc. If you don't have that fact-based evidence, then just let them know that they have every right to feel how they feel, and then ask them what it will take to resolve the issue. The cool thing about Taurus is once you do whatever it is that they're asking you to do to fix the problem that started out the argument, then you two will be good. They will let it go, but if you don't resolve the issue to their standards by basically doing exactly what they asked you to do, then be ready to be put in Taurus's time out, where you are getting nothing from them but crickets for a very, very, very long time. How long, you ask? Basically as long as it takes for you to do whatever it is that they asked you to do to resolve the situation in the first place. So just know, if you decided that you're unwilling to honor the request, then you can kiss them and the relationship goodbye. So if Taurus is someone you don't want to lose, then show them that they're worth it by honoring their request. You don't have to agree with the reasons why they're requesting it, you just have to honor the request. If you do, then you'll get right back in to getting that warm-hearted, charming, and very loving version of your Taurus. All right, Gemini. When a Gemini gets into an argument, they will definitely go round after round to prove their point. But the cool thing about them is that they're perfectly fine at a certain point to just agree to disagree. They're definitely passionate about their perspective, but they don't need to hear you say the words, "You're right." Don't get me wrong, they like to hear those words. Everyone likes to be right, but it's not something they need to hear in order to move forward and to be past the argument. Now, if you want to make sure the argument doesn't escalate, then the most important thing to do is hear them out. Don't try to cut them off or shut them down in the middle of a discussion. If a Gemini feels like you aren't willing to listen to them and that you've decided what they have to say isn't important enough to be heard, that's when they can turn ugly. So be open to hearing their perspective, even if it goes a bit longer than you would like it to. And as long as you are not judgmental or dismissive, you should get past the conflict pretty quickly. Also, if you feel like it's getting too heated in the midst of the discussion, bringing a little lighthearted fun to the conversation is good. I mean, don't crack a joke right in the middle of them speaking, but when you have a moment to be heard, come back with something lighthearted that isn't dismissive, but that does make them laugh, and they'll forget about the fact that the two of you were ever fighting. Trust me, they much more prefer to be having fun than they do to be debating some heavy emotional issue. Okay, Cancers. Okay, now if you're in an argument with a Cancer, be prepared at any moment for them to shut down. When a Cancer gets upset enough, we know that they go into their shell for protection. So you want to make sure that above all else, during the argument or discussion, that they feel you are truly ready to listen to them with an open mind and, more importantly, an open heart. The moment they feel like you're judging their perspective by telling them that they're being ridiculous or that they're overreacting, or if they feel like you don't care in some way, then you have just escalated the situation to a place that is the danger zone for a Cancer. Because if you're telling a Cancer that they're wrong for how they feel, then for them, you might as well be saying that you don't care about them at all. So if you don't want to escalate the situation, give them the opportunity to open up to you and make sure that with your response, you're letting them know that you understand how they feel. Once they know that you truly understand and care, and that you're not escalating the situation by being critical of their feelings, then the situation should resolve itself pretty quickly. The thing about Cancers is the moment that they know that you respect them enough to care about their feelings, they want to reconnect because they don't like feeling disconnected from someone that they care about. However, if you did rub them the wrong way during the conversation and they went into their shell, then you just gave yourself a hard way to go. Because much like Taurus, Cancers can be very stubborn in that shell of theirs. The difference is where Taurus needs for you to say that they're right, Cancers really just need to know that you truly are sorry because you care about them and their feelings, so that way they know that you'll do things differently next time because you'll take into consideration what they were upset about and why they were upset. So with Cancers, a sincere, heartfelt apology does work in terms of reconnecting, but if you're holding on to your point and your point means that the way the Cancer was feeling is wrong, then say goodbye, because for a Cancer, that is grounds for termination. Okay, Leos. Leos are pretty straightforward with any argument. Yes, they can get angry and they can be pretty animated when they're angry because they are a fire sign like Aries and Sagittarius, but of the fire signs, they are the biggest performers. So the argument can appear way more dramatic than it actually is, but with them, if they're frustrated enough to be in a heated argument with you, then they're usually very willing to get to a solution, and 9 times out of 10, the point they're arguing is based on attempting to convince you to be part of that solution. They may spend a moment or two trying to explain to you why you're wrong, but if in the midst of their rant you just say to them, what is it you need from me right now in order to feel better about this, they will willingly shift gears and work to find a solution with you because they're pretty solution oriented. Now you may want to interject with that question pretty early on in the argument, because if they see that you're giving them the open stage to continue their rant, they will see that as an opportunity to give the audience what they want, which is a performance. And unless you're willing to sit through that performance, just let them know you want to discuss a solution, and that's where the conversation will go. And you will have a resolution in no time. But if you are closed-minded and making it all about you, and your Leo feels that you're being dismissive of their feelings, they will lose interest very quickly. So it won't even really be about escalating the argument to an ugly place. They'll just really see you as no longer worth their time. They aren't the types to pout or stomp around being mad with the silent treatment. For them, it's more about coming to the realization that you're the type of person that brings more negative energy than positive energy to their life. And if that's the case, they will begin to think more in terms of ending the relationship. But they aren't really snap decision makers. They won't end it right then and there. They really do want to make it work. So if you put forth the effort, like I said, by being open-minded and solution-oriented, then the argument will turn to an opportunity to connect based on a resolution, and you two should be back to having a good time in no time. Okay, Virgos. Virgos are a much more difficult way to go in an argument type situation. Meaning if they're taking their time to argue with you, it's because they feel like there's a very important point to be made, and a point that they are very clear is 100% correct on their side. Much like Taurus and Capricorn, they are gonna come with the black and white evidence to back up their point. But the difference is with Virgo is they have the stamina that is unmatched. Meaning they will pretty much go for as long as the argument needs to go in order to get you to see their point. Unless they have a moon or a Mars placement in Aries or Sagittarius, then more than likely it won't get to the point where they're screaming and acting crazy in the argument. But it will escalate if you continue to tell them that they're wrong, but without backing it up with anything other than your perspective or opinion. It's one thing to say to them, I get where you're coming from, but this is how I feel. They may be open to that form of communication, but don't expect them to agree with you. They will give you your right to feel however you want to feel, but that in no way to them means that you're right. If you say to them, no, you're wrong, then they're gonna respond with how, when, why, and where is the information you have to prove me wrong? Because without that information, they will feel that you're just a bunch of hot air and in your feelings, and they are not trying to debate someone who is not coming from an evidence-based perspective. So if you don't want the argument to escalate and you don't want the conversation to end in disconnect, then say to the Virgo, I really want to understand you right now, so please just tell me what is the exact point you're trying to get me to see. Then you can let them know, yes, I see your point, or no, I don't, and these are the fact-based supporting details as to why I don't see your point. Or they will also accept it if you say to them, you know what, we just see this differently, and we won't come to a mutual agreement on this one. And because of that, it's best to just let it go. So with Virgos, it's really just all about getting to a final conclusion and making sure not to directly tell them that they're wrong. This way the argument can end amicably. But at least with Virgos, they can agree to disagree if you just let it go and say, you know what, we just see this differently. But leave it at that. Don't start explaining your point with what you think to be your evidence if it's not fact-based, if it's just opinion-based, because then you're opening the door to restart that conversation, because they will go right back to point one and take you through every point again. So save your time and theirs and either accept their point, disagree with their point with evidence, or agree to disagree and move on. Okay, Libras. The thing is, Libras really hate arguing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Libras are quiet and that they're not opinionated. They will for sure let their opinions and their advice be heard. But I'm saying in a relationship where their emotional feelings are involved, they're not too excited to have a discussion that's going to create conflict. So they will either avoid the topic altogether, or sometimes they'll just agree with you just to keep the drama to a minimum. Because more times than not, they are much more interested in keeping the peace. So here's the situation with a Libra if you do happen to get into an argument with them. They aren't so stuck on one point, which is cool, and they're willing to see your perspective as long as they know that you're open-minded to their perspective as well. If they feel like you're trying to force them into your way of thinking without having an open mind, then the argument won't necessarily escalate, but they will then just see you as annoying and will begin to avoid you and put you into the "this person gives me a headache" category. So if you want to have a healthy debate with a Libra where you're exchanging ideas and listening to each other with an open mind, then they're all about it. But if you come at them with black and white thinking and judgment, they're not having it. They will just see you as small-minded and probably even stupid. So resolution with the Libra lies in your ability to be civil and to have an open mind. Disconnect with the Libra will come from you being closed off, loud, and overly rigid in your opinion. It's that simple. Okay, Scorpios. Well, first, a Scorpio is not going to really argue with you unless you matter enough to them. Scorpios couldn't care less about what other people are thinking unless it's someone who has some level of importance in their life, or if they're arguing on behalf of someone or some cause that they care about in order to protect that energy. But if you do find yourself in an argument with a Scorpio, then be very careful, because that is one argument that you definitely do not want to escalate. Scorpios usually keep it pretty cool. They state their perspective with passion, and if you disagree with them, they're not gonna amp up and start giving too much energy to proving you wrong like one of the earth signs would do. They more so hear your perspective and start internally judging who you are and how they feel about what you had to say, which then informs how they're gonna categorize you as a person. Basically what it means for the future that you may or may not have with them moving forward. But they won't outwardly show you that they are shutting down like a Cancer does, and they won't spend an extended amount of time like a Virgo would do, giving you all the reasons that you're wrong and that they're right. But the argument will escalate if you in some way make a personal attack on them or someone that they care about, especially if it's someone that they care about. That's when things can get really ugly. So if you find yourself in an argument with a Scorpio and you want it to go as smoothly as possible, then stick to the topic at hand. Don't try and change the topic to throw them off, because they will just look at you like you're crazy. Maybe even roll their eyes thinking this person's all over the place. So stick to the topic that you're discussing, and whatever you do, do not make a personal attack or judgment call about them or someone that they care about. If you stick within those guidelines and make your point about the actual topic without trying to turn it around on them or deflect to something else, then it can be a very healthy discussion. Scorpios are cool with respecting someone else's perspective, even if it doesn't agree with theirs, as long as both people are behaving in a mutually respectful way. Okay, Sagittarius. If you're gonna get into an argument with a Sagittarius, then you better have your big boy or big girl pants on, because a Sagittarius is very clever and will for sure keep you on your toes in any sort of debate. But if it's an actual argument where it's something that they're passionate about, then the gloves come off and playtime is over. It will really only escalate to an ugly place if the argument is based on the Sagittarius feeling that they deserve something and they're not getting what they deserve, and that you're the person that's standing in the way of that. They will do and say whatever it is necessary to remove that obstacle and get what they feel like they deserve. So if that obstacle is you, be ready for war. And if that's the case, this fire sign will light up the entire room with their words and act like nothing happened as they watch the ashes blow. So if you don't want the argument to escalate, then don't stand in the way of them getting what they want. But in terms of a typical argument that's just based on a difference of opinion, Sagittarius are pretty cool with live and let live. They will challenge you just to see what you got in terms of how you defend your point. They'll find ways to push your buttons, because for them, that can be kind of fun too, and actually entertaining. But overall, they are perfectly fine with you having your own opinion and them having theirs, and still being cool with getting along with you and enjoying each other's company in the midst of your differences. But like I said, if your opinion or behavior is keeping them from their freedom and getting what they want, then be ready for battle. Now on to Capricorns. Oh, Capricorns. Capricorns in an argument. Well, let me start by saying this. If you're in an argument with a Capricorn, it's gonna feel like you're arguing with one of your parents. They aren't too open to the idea that anyone knows as much as they do. And the argument isn't even really about them proving to you that they're right. For Capricorns, if you find yourself in an argument with them, it's usually because you've done something that they're pissed about. And when that's the case, the argument will consist of them telling you why you were wrong and them telling you how they plan on dealing with it. They aren't asking you for your input unless they're asking you to explain why you did what you did, which more than likely won't even really change anything about their perspective. They just want an explanation so they can tell you once again why you were wrong. Now, if you're arguing with them about some random opinion-based topic, it's a little less intense and they're open to your point of view. But if you're in a relationship with them and you're arguing because they are angry about something that you have done, then just know there isn't much wiggle room in terms of perspective. The argument will escalate if you're responding by not taking it as seriously as they are. For example, if you laugh and tell them that they're being ridiculous or that they're out of line with their perspective, then it will escalate for sure. But for Capricorns, if they feel like you're disregarding their feelings, then their response to that is, this is done. We are over. They are out, so say your goodbyes. And they're not really the type to go back once they've said goodbye. So the best thing to do if you're in an argument with a Capricorn is to let them know that you're taking the conversation seriously. You can do that with your behavior just by listening, and let them know that you understand where they're coming from. And if there's something that they are asking of you in order to feel better about the situation, then be ready to deliver that. Because once those criteria are met, the Capricorn will be open to hearing your perspective and also hearing whatever needs you may have. That's the cool thing about them. Once they know that you're taking it seriously and that you're willing to do what they're asking you to do, that shifts them back into that loving, caretaking, open-hearted version of the Capricorn that you care about. So if you want that version of them to come back in the midst of the argument, then make sure they feel heard and respected. Once they are feeling good about the situation, they will be open-minded and and way easier to deal with. Okay, Aquarius. Arguing with an Aquarius can be very tricky. They're smart, they're unpredictable in their approach, and they can surprisingly be pretty stubborn. So here's the thing. An argument with an Aquarius will not get escalated to the point of ugliness unless they feel as though you are trying to control them. Very similar to Sagittarius, but for them it's just about controlling anything that they're doing. Aquarians pretty much are live and let live. They go by the do you and I'll do me perspective. This is actually pretty easy to get along with, but if you're in an argument with them because there's something that you're trying to force them to do or force them to believe, this is when they can show you their not so humanitarian side. So the best way to resolve any disagreement with an Aquarius is let them know your perspective on the situation, making sure not to make any direct judgments about their perspective, and they'll be much more open to what you have to say if they see that you're also open to what they have to say. They're similar to Libras in this way, it's just Libras don't get as triggered by the whole control situation. They definitely don't need you to agree with them, and they really don't even have the energy or desire to try and prove you wrong. But like I said, if your intention is to try and control any of their behavior, then the argument won't end well. So communicate with an open mind, and if there's something that you want them to do, then ask them in a way that is letting them know that you want them to do whatever it is because it will make you happy or make you feel good, not because they should or it's the right thing to do based on how you see the world. An Aquarius is much more likely to do something for you as a request than as an order or an ultimatum. So an open-minded request is always the way to go. Okay, often last because you're the last sign of the zodiac, but for sure, far from least, let's talk about Pisces. The cool thing about Pisces is they are truly open-minded. Think of it like this. You know how every sign has a polar opposite? Well, Virgo is the polar opposite of Pisces. And this is because Virgos, as I said before, think in very black and white terms. It either is or it isn't. If a Pisces is in an argument, yes, they may be very passionate about their point, but if they feel like you're really listening to them, not just humoring them, but actually listening to them, then they are okay if you don't agree. They want to make sure you understand why they feel the way that they feel, much more than they care about whether you're agreeing if they're wrong or right. So the only way that the argument can get out of hand is similar to Aquarius, if they feel like you're trying to force them into your way of thinking. But for Pisces, it can be even more intense because they feel that if you're trying to force them into your way of thinking, then that means that you're not considering their feelings. And much like Cancers, if you're not considering their feelings, then for them, game on. You will not get the loving, compassionate version of them. You will get the version of them that can be quite the opposite. They won't be so quick to shut down and cut you off like Cancer, but that is definitely the direction that they start to go if they start to equate you with someone that only sees things the way you want to see them without considering their feelings. So the best way to resolve any argument with a Pisces is to make sure that they know that you respect what they're going through, how they feel, and their opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but respect it enough to take it into consideration when it comes to deciding what you think about the situation. Pisces would love nothing more than to reach an agreement that you both feel great about. So approach the topic in a way that is not dismissive or rigid, and you will come out on the other side of the disagreement with a resolution. This way you can get right back to being in the flow and enjoying all the love your Pisces has to give. Okay, so there you have it, how each sign of the zodiac behaves in an argument, how it could potentially escalate, and the best way to find a resolution. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please give it a like. It really helps the channel out. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.